So last week we covered the invasions at A, right? We covered a few invasions moving in between the three space extension, right? Um, while this week, we covered actually, so not that I had this in the presentation, but we covered both when to use the diagonal, when to use this, the jumping move, and then at some points we had like an under and over attachment. Um, but this week we're going to cover the attachments itself, right? So let us start. That's where we're at. We're in chapter 8 of the Attack and Defense book, and we're halfway through the chapter. So, attaching instead of invading. The attachment of 1 looks like a stronger move than the invasion at A, but it's actually reverse. Black would use this attachment when white is strong enough to play B against black A. So if in this case black invaded and white play was strong enough to play this would actually be a pretty bad sequence for black, right? Because black would be in trouble. So when we can't play this and white like counterattacks us very strongly, that's when we should start thinking about the attachment. So this is when we use this, which is pretty useful. I'm sure you guys have experimented using invasions and attachments, but it's really nice to know when you should, right? When you should attach and when you should invade. So white has three main ways to respond. If white, let's say, hanes, which I think is the most like, what would you call it, used move, right? In this instance where white has 2 stones, white will want to keep his corner and try and connect with his buddy. Black can use what I call the dancing hane. White has three main answers to black's attachment. The first is the hane underneath. All these notes publicly available. Yes, actually. So I'll give you guys the link on Twitch. I also make YouTube videos, so you guys will be able to get this later as well. But yeah, the first is the hane underneath. Okay, so when white hane is here, black also dances with a hane, right? You can counter a hane with a hane. And white can cut at A or sometimes connect at B. I've seen both. A gets really confusing sometimes. B is pretty simple. Black expects to use A as a sacrifice, but he needs the ladder to be in his favor if black plays B. So the idea is that, let's say if white Ataris, black's going to extend, and now this ladder matters quite a bit, right? If black was to, let's say, play B to defend its corner now, then this ladder would be super useful for black. So we have to keep this ladder in mind once we use the dancing hane here. Not that it would go this way, but it does have some factors to it, right? There could be all different types of moves here. But essentially, when you play this hane after a hane, right, which I call the dancing hane, expect that this is probably going to be a sacrifice for you to get some strength on the outside. We'll look at some examples further after we go over the other moves, which is this one and this one. So when white plays on this side, black should play here to break apart these two groups, right? So if white wants to be more aggressive, he can hane on the top of black stones with 1. Black 2 starts a running battle. So this is going to be, both sides moving out into the center. So this is another way white could fight. And I think this way I always have some trouble with. If you're playing against me and you play this outside hane, I'm gonna have some trouble. So we'll see how that goes. We'll have some examples of that. And then finally, the third possibility is if white just calmly plays strong, right? When we play these attachments or these hanes, there's chances of like cross cuts and lots of confusion. So if you want to just play simply, you can make your corner very strong and black has to jump away. The third possibility is for white to stand straight with 1. Black replies with 2, or A and again starts a running battle. So I didn't actually put A down apparently if there was an A. But this is the standard way to play, right? Is to play this. I think actually I remember it was this one. because in my own games, I remember playing this style. I actually wouldn't naturally come up with the jump here. But yeah, you could also play A to separate these two groups, and you're trying to get into the corner a little bit, right? So either of these responses are pretty normal when white plays this. And that is that for the intro of the attachment. So when we attach to the stone, expect one of these. As for the white player, for being attached to, then put each one of these in perspective and feel which one you'd prefer in each situation. We're going to go over some examples of these, so let's take a look. All right, this is an example from a professional game. So at this point, we can see, we can look at the board, right? And we find that here is that three space extension. So we know that we're going to learn about the attachment here. So let's take a look. Um, in this case, if you remember last class, if black was here, this isn't in the book, I'm just referring to the last class to jolt my own memory and hopefully yours. If black was here, this invasion would be really nice, right? Because black would have many ways to go. Black would be able to dig in, black would be able to connect to his friend, black would be able to come out. But in this particular case, you can see that black is further away. So those options aren't as, that third option isn't there anymore. So this is that time where if black invaded, white could try and counterattack strongly. So instead, we're now going to use the attachment just like we talked about in the beginning. So this in this case, the professional used the dancing hane, white crosscut, and black had to pull out. This ladder works for black. If you want to check it, I made sure to double check it. So that's why black went with this hane, this dancing hane. And then instead of allowing that ladder, white played 6, right? Black uses 1 to reduce white's 4-stone framework in the lower right. So if we look here, we have a really nice framework for white. And so that's why black played this attachment. Because of black's influence on the top, white does not want to get involved with a running battle. So he answers with 2 and 6. So he answered with yeah, pretty much 6. 6 looks kind of weird, right? Normally you'd play something like this or like this or like this. And so 6 played, white played here. So black Ataris and white comes out. Black hits the head of 2 and then white jumps. So I found this really interesting because this does pop up quite a lot in the mid game, right? The opening's already been done, everybody's done every corner, and so now we're in the middle game, which I find one of the hardest parts of the game for me. And so I really like this sequence. The Joseki ends with white 12. Black builds the center thickness in Sente. So we can see white got to save both of its sides after the dancing hane, but black still got some thickness on the outside, which then he can use to start pushing down here, right? So after we hane again, black gets just to connect. And so we can look at what black gained and what white gained, right? So his next move, thank you for the follow, Fizdens. His next move takes a large chunk of white's framework. Rather than challenge black's center thickness, white gives up the marked stone, right? This one here. Starting with 1, black has not done much against the right side, but he has gained a bit on the bottom and the center, right? And so we see once again, white got to keep all its stuff, but black got some nice thickness on the outside and a little profit here. So, I guess the book doesn't really say who got the advantage out of this. I'm going to consider it fairly even. White got lots of profit, black got some thickness and some profit. I mean, you might even argue that black got a better job here, but I thought it was really cool because I do see these attachments in dancing hanes quite often at the higher level. So it's a nice little technique to learn. Also, it's nice to know that when this doesn't work, we can then default to this attachment. I like that idea. It's giving us more tools, right, to use. This chapter, just like last week, it's the same chapter. I understand that it's kind of hard, not only to learn but to teach too, because a lot of it is very like standard formation. Understand these, and that's pretty tough to learn. You guys aren't computers; you can't see it once and then become a master of it. So you're definitely gonna have to review this. I advise reviewing the book, and I advise rewatching the video once it's up. But I do understand that this is kind of hard for double GGQ players. But we decided, or at least I decided, to cover the whole entire book of Attack and Defense. So we have to finish chapter 8. I'm sure you guys don't mind, but it's just my little disclaimer because when I was putting this together, I was like, this is tough stuff. um, White does not save the cutting stone. It doesn't cover it in the book, so if we go back, Runis and Zoom was asking what if White doesn't want to save, or it does save this, right? So let's say if, um, I don't know, White crosscuts. So White pulls back here. But if White crosscuts, this starts to become pretty confusing pretty quickly. Um, what if R6? R6. Okay, let's see. Like right now, I guess White would have to worry about the stone, right? Earlier. Okay. So just right now, this doesn't look right. Um, because White is still perfectly fine, right? And then even if Black jumps out, we could use a squeeze. I think we can even get away with the Hane here. Let's see. At move 6. Move 6. Okay. Let me see. Sorry, guys. Move 6. Move 6. With White's move 6? I don't know. I think this is straying a little too far from the book. Um, what do we have here? Let me just see. White does not save the cutting by pulling out. Sorry, Runis. I'm not sure. This strays pretty far, and I don't know. It would just be a different game. This is how the professionals played their game, right? This was actually a professional example. So I don't know. I don't know how much more to tell you, um, but yeah, this is how it went. So White sacrificed the stone and then kept its stuff. I apologize that I don't understand what you mean or when to pull out this black stone, but it doesn't look like pulling this out would help much. So I'm gonna move on. Sorry, Runis. Yeah, we can talk about it after if you want. I do have an MGA league match after this though, so we'll we'll figure it out. All right, let's move on to the next part. So this is a very familiar scene. I'm sure a lot of people recognize this. Essentially, after Black plays here and then Black walls off this part, he makes a 3-space extension, right? This is super common, and this is after White kind of pinches both sides, right? Normally, we see Black jump, but some cases, especially in double digit Q games, lower or higher SDK games, maybe they'll Tanuki and play somewhere else. At this point, we should understand that this invasion is actually really good, right? So we're not going to do any attachments here because this is already really nice. Um, this is really nice for White. So the 3-space extension from a 2-stone wall. White 1 is the only invasion point, and Black can choose his reply among A, B, and C. Black A is the strongest move if he could capture, which, spoiler alert, he can't. So this is actually not going to work. B, which is more defensive and is actually the correct move. And C, which is used in emergency use only, right? This move is actually considered pretty bad in this aspect. So let's take a look at all of them. If we were trying to overly aggressively try and capture this, right? If you guys remember, all last week we covered the diagonal, the one jump, the under attachment, even the over attachment. But if you remember that black's diagonal is trying to capture this, we just can't, right? White's going to cut through. This is a very infamous shape where if white has an extra stone, this cut is super good. Black Ataris and tries to save his stone, right? Because this isn't a ladder. And then white gets to drop down. And so white has two ways to actually connect to his friends. Both of them work. Black can't use the diagonal here because if he does, white's going to cut him and gets the link back to his friends, right, on either side. And black is sliced into two weak groups. We can easily see that black is kind of weak here and black is kind of weak here. So this is really important. I remember, like I said, reading this book around 6Q and learning that these basic like Josekis really helped. But yeah, A is not a good move for black in this case. So the correct move is B, which white can immediately go downwards to try and connect to each group. If black plays properly by keeping all his stones connected, white gets to fix himself, and here we are. Black 2 here is the best move in the situation. White can play 3 at followed by white B, and link up to his stones above. Or he can descend to 3. So instead of playing what that was confusingly written as is that instead of playing this descend, white could also play this way and link up to his friends as well. So we can see that white is able to link up to his friends, but black gets to keep all his stones connected, right? And so black still has some influence. But in the original one, they showed this one in the book, which is just as good, right? It's the same concept. Black gets to keep his stones connected, and white gets to be safe, right? Connect under. So that is that for the correct way. Finally, we have C, which isn't actually covered yet. It's going to be covered in a different example. But I just want you guys to know normally when white checks you like this, usually black will jump up, right? This is why black jumps up. Because if black doesn't, you can punish black severely with this invasion here. Even if black plays the correct way, it's still nice for white because black doesn't have any eye potential. So this is a really nice move to know. It's very extremely common pattern that you'll see in your games. So it's very good knowledge to have. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. So here's another example of professional play. So this was a pros game, and we can see how this is. We can kind of see what's going to turn up, right? Black invades the 3-space invasion, and this time black is very strong on the outside, right? Black doesn't have that pincer stone like last time. In this case, white is actually very weak. And so we're going to see now when it is the time to use this emergency move, right? Normally we would play B as we just saw, but in this case we're playing this move. And we'll go over both. White is weak due to the marked stones, so white uses the emergency move. If white played M16, so we can go back and show that when white plays on top. I just want to finish this, I guess. Actually, I'll go back and play on top and then come back. So if white played this way, black can thrust, right, hitting his head here, and then cut, which is really nice. White should take the 2 stones. But then black, I guess I should read this. If white uses the upper attachment at 1, black thrusts the 2 and cuts, white can capture, but, right, the idea is that this is a really nice move. So once again, this is like a professional analysis. I like this move a lot. I think most people would play this right away, including myself. Maybe I'd come up with this, but I just like the order of moves here. So black plays here, and white gets the turn, right? This is something I'd want to prevent, so I probably would play down here. But black doesn't care, right? Black can just Atari, which makes an extremely thick wall. And white has to crawl and come back to take the 2 stones. So, without even reading the script, which I will anyway, you can just clearly see that black got a very successful situation because this moyo, right? This thickness, this strength facing another thickness is really nice. And white really didn't get too much. So let's read the script. Black scores a huge success by sacrificing the two stones. He solidifies his own territorial framework with 8 and 10 and stays in front of white with 12 and 14. This result is terrible for white. So let's go back. This is why it's not a good idea for white to play the over attachment. White will be able to live, but it's really not worth what you're giving away, which is most of the game, right? So instead, white needs to play this emergency move, right? So this is the interesting move, this clamp here. I've seen it. I've probably tried to use it. I know why we do it now because of this book, so hopefully I'll be able to explain it well to you guys. But essentially, black can't play this move anymore, right? In the other example, we saw that black played this, and it worked very well for black. But when we clamp like this, black can't play this way. Um, yeah, you can see why, right? If black tried the same exact thing, black is maybe black would be all right in this sequence. Let me just see. This is off script, guys. This is not in the book. It says that black can't play this, but now I have to prove it. Maybe we play this way, and what does black do? Kind of leads to the same thing, right? Maybe we give up the stones. I'm not sure. This is one part of the problem, I guess, of doing the book stuff is if we go off script, I do have some trouble. So let me just see. Obviously, instead of playing this, we could just play here. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, this looks good. This looks good. Black would never be able to come in front, so we can get enough liberties to come back and just like kill this thing, right? Okay, so that's why. I'm hoping that's why. That this clamp prevents it. And so black needs to play this attachment, and so that makes the difference. This is, like I said, guys, this is not double digit Q friendly. Heck, I have trouble with it. But I really like this over attachment. It gives me a new perspective on this. So black connects, white comes down, black pushes through, and then pushes through, and then takes the stone, right? White just keeps trying to intercept black, even though it is futile, which is true, because now when white connects, black actually gets to eat all 5 of these stones here. So in the end, the professional chose to play 1 underneath. The 1-2 exchange, so the 1 and the 2, the Hane, keeps black from thrusting. That's what the book says here at 6, and we've kind of found the pattern there. The rest of the sequence is rather complex. White sacrifices 1 and 4 other stones to make shape on the outside. Black gets the better position with his large capture, and white is better off than the last diagram and gets Sente. So when we compared the last diagram, black got a humongous wall facing the center, and it was way too good for black. In this case, black doesn't really have that humongous wall. White gets Sente, but black did get a nice juicy capture. So it's considered still kind of better for black, but this is better for white compared to the other diagram. So that's kind of upsetting, right? That even when you use this move, black's still gonna get a better result. But it's very specific to this setup, right? Where black has 2 nice mark stones, and white is just very weak. So if you consider white's already weak, if white can get anything out of this, it should be okay, right? And so that's what happens. White gets a little something out of it. All right, guys, that covers the 2 stone wall with the 3 space jump, I believe. I don't think there's much more examples. Very useful things, but once again, I totally understand that if some of this is going over your head, or if you're just not going to memorize all this in one go. I get it because I'm not going to say I can or have. The three space extension to the fourth line. So when the three space extension is on the fourth line, there are two invasion points to choose from, A and B. So I rarely see this, but I do see it somewhat, like especially in double digit Q games where opponents will play two high stones with a three space extension, right? Normally we see like a lower one or just a two space instead of a three, but anyway, this is nice to know. So um, let's look at A first, which is the invasion. Black attaches on top, right? The low invasion is the simpler of the two. 9 times out of 10, black should answer it with the attachment at 2. Building an outer wall while white lives on the side, right? When black wants to defend his side, he can play A or B, but white will jump to the center freely. So if black ends up playing like one of these to defend this side, white actually is free to jump to the center. That's what the book is saying here. So 9 times out of 10, black plays on top, and then white should be able to live pretty easily. So if you guys, somebody has a big side or a moyo, and they have a three space high extension like this, you guys know you can usually live pretty easy by using something like this. Now we're going to look at this one. The high invasion creates difficulties for both sides. Black, because he cannot link his two stones together, and for white, because he cannot play easily, or he cannot gain easily eye space along the side. Black often replies with a diagonal play. Actually, let me let's go in like that. Yeah, black often replies with a diagonal play like 2 or a 1 point jump at A. This invites a running battle. Um, and another frequent response is black would play B, which prepares to cross under at C. Black 2 at C is also seen in some cases where black intends to give up a stone. So the book's going to actually cover these, but the idea is that when white plays this, black has the diagonal option. He can jump. He can prevent white from playing one of these. And then this also helps with the connection at C. And finally, if he tries this connection, we can see that white can Hane on both sides. And one of them is going to be able to connect, which will disconnect these two stones. So understand that these high stones can be disconnected pretty easily. And so that's why, black usually chooses the diagonal or A to separate, well, to kind of put pressure on this, which is going to create a running battle. All right, let's look at some examples of these. Here, the high invasion at 1 is the best. So let's take a look. If we look at this as a whole, right? We have, if we look at the setup of the game, this is the high three space extension. So if white plays A, black jumps, white jumps, and then white jumps again. So here the high invasion at 1 is best. If black runs out with 2 and 4, white gladly runs as well. Heading into black's framework, you can see that black had a very large framework on the right side. And white's enclosure in the lower left corner works as a pincer against the pair of the black stones, including 4. So when we look at this, these two stones are very strong, which you could then think of them as thickness, right? If they're not going to be killed, then they're strong. And so pushing these stones into strength, that's very nice with these moves. Same with this, right? White is pretty strong here. And so it's the same idea applies that if we keep cutting through, these stones also can be pushed to thickness. Also, white is jumping into this black area. So this is very, very nice for white in general. So this is why playing high here, if you had the option of playing low or high, the high one is much better. Just before we go into looking at why this is worse, let's see B here. So if black tried to use the diagonal, right, which we saw in the example, right, we use this for attacking. Black could then attack in front and fix its cutting point, and white takes the stone cleanly, and then black gets to play 8. It might actually be better for black to play the diagonal move at 2 and abandon the marked stone in the order to build up his framework to the right with 4, 6, and 8. Um, so let's like just examining this really quickly. We can go over it just quick again. Um, the using this to attack, knowing that you're going to sacrifice this so you can build an outside wall is really nice. I think this is a very high level type of thinking, right? Most double digit cube players are not very comfortable with sacrificing stones in this big of an area. But for the greater good of trying to get the outside here, which is much bigger, we can give up the sacrifice. So I like this. This feels like a very high level concept move to me. So I really like this. I just wanted to point it out. So it's much better than just jumping and jumping and jumping, right? This is far worse for black and far better for white. So finally, we're going to look at why this is wrong. I think you guys can kind of guess it already, or at least you understand it already, right? We talked about when white plays low, the 9 out of 10 move is to connect on top, right? Attach on top. And as white makes life, pretty easily, mind you, black gets a very nice thick wall, which is going to help him with his moyo and that's what he wanted from the start. So for white, the low invasion would be a mistake here. Black replies with 2 and gains added center thickness with 4 and 6. White's position on the left side is low and redundant, right? So this is really cool to understand when we should use high and low. If we want a running battle and the running battle is going to favor us because we're strong on both sides, then this is a very good move to play high in between here. But if we, I guess, care about the side, and let's say it was white that was strong out here, then black's wall would mean nothing, right? If white was strong out here. But if black is really strong out here, then it's terrible to give black a nice wall facing its strength. So very interesting stuff. I think this is much simpler than some of the other stuff we covered today. So we're going to move on to this one. So this actually happens quite often, I think, right? This, at least in my games, it happens all the time. And it's always very uncomfortable when white plays here, to me, personally. I never know exactly what to do. Like, I know the most basic move is usually to diagonal. At least that's what I think. But it's really uncomfortable, right? Because you can't connect under. If you try, black's going to get a nice wedge here, like a nice spike. So let's take a look. Um, so I mentioned that the diagonal is one of the most used moves, but it looks like in this case, the book recommends this move. So it's good to know. I'll learn something from this as well. So when white plays 1, black's best move is to respond with 2. This indirectly attacks white and prevents white from playing at 2 for white's self. This descent strengthens black's hold on the lower left side. Ordinarily, black would play A to attack, but white's marked stones will help him as he runs. So this is what makes the difference between not playing A and deciding to descend here, which is that white is very strong on the top. So if we started a running battle, it would actually be in white's favor, right? White would be able to get away. So I find this really interesting. Actually very helpful to me personally. So hopefully you guys have run into the situation and this will give you some more tools and thoughts, right? So if we play down in white jumps, we can just connect under and it's very nice and easy, right? The hard part is when white really wants to keep these stones split. And so if white jumps down to 1, he can keep black separated. So this is just true that black will just stay separated. Um, but the exchange of the mark stones for one to this one is in black's favor. So the idea is that this move makes this move look better, right? Because black's already fine here, so black can now take the first move on the outside for the group that got cut off. So that is all the book covers in this. It doesn't go in deep detail how to handle when white plays this, unfortunately, but it gives us the idea of when not to play A, which is when white is strong on the top, right? When white's strong so close, it's not good to fight, and that makes sense, right? That makes sense to me. So I think that's it for these examples here. Yeah, that's it for this. But I really like this because this happens all the time, and I feel very uncomfortable when somebody plays this. I don't know how to truly handle it. The running battles. I've won the last one I played with. If you guys watched yesterday's stream, but I can't say I'm the true expert on running battles. So sometimes those are really difficult for me. Okay, so let's talk about this more. So in this case, last time white strength was a little higher, right? And black had a big framework, and so white played the high approach here. But in this case, white's overshadowing black, so it's more aggressive to actually play this move. Well, kinda. We'll see at the end of this example. Let's see. So, white can play its moves, right? To try and live. In this case, white didn't break the tiger's mouth. White actually has a different plan, which is to leave weakness on purpose, which is kind of interesting. But let me just say, I'm sure he'll say it in the script, but let's just look at this right now. And the idea is that black's wall here is already neutralized because white is strong here. So black's not going to build a big moyo here. And that's what the point of walls are usually, right? To either fight or to build a moyo. And in this case, black can't fight or build a moyo because white's strong here. Thank you for the follow, guys. Cosmic Hawk, Isaac. Appreciate it. So let's take a look at this, which I do find interesting. Guys, if you take lessons from me, normally I do not like to play moves that get split so easily, right, and creates two cutting points. Usually that's not what I like to teach. But in this case, it's actually a really good idea, which is it's just so interesting to purposely leave a weakness. But let's take a look. Here, white strength makes the low invasion at one ideal if black plays A. So if black plays to kill these stones, right, this is very normal. This is very normal behavior for black, right? You set up a Atari here, which creates like a double Atari type thing, right? You get a kill out of it. But the thing is, white gets one eye and then gets another and undercuts these stones severely. This is extremely successful for white. Let me read the script, but let's talk about it. Yeah, whatever happens. Whatever happens here, right? Like if black went through all this, the thick wall that black makes in the center is canceled out by the above stones here, right? And so even if black gets a two stone capture, it's not really a big deal, especially if white was able to spoil all this area that black had claim on, right? And now this group actually feels kind of weak too. So you have an attack and you spoil this area. So to me, like I thought this was super cool that like you're just purposely leaving a weakness, giving up stones to get a better situation. I really like this one. This started with using a low invasion. Let's check out the high invasion, right? I hope you guys understand this because white could have just played here and like lives, but black would probably be able to stop white's invasion or at least gain something good out of this. But instead, as I said, white purposely created a weakness, which then gave white a really good result here. And originally this was black's area, so keep that in mind. So that's what makes it super cool. Um, but anyway, let's look at the high approach now. So if we play the high one, black will do what we talked about, right? The idea is when you make this attachment, understand that you can't connect these. So if you're okay with a sacrifice, then it's okay to play this. So this is exactly what happens, right? Black sacrifices the stone in order to make white look a little weird, right? Like it's fine, it's okay for white, but the problem is, and we'll read the script, but um, just without even reading the script, you can see this is far better for black than what we saw in the previous diagram, right? Excuse me. The high invasion at 1 turns out badly in this position. Black hits under with 2, which was the attachment under. And by move 8, white is badly over concentrated, and black solidified his territory. This is much worse compared to the previous diagram for white, right? Um, if black tried to save the marked stone, black would strengthen with white 1 and either get captured or give white a good result. So what it's talking about is if black like tried to cut through here, apparently it would strengthen white 1, which we can kind of see, right? And black, it says black will most likely get killed here. So we can keep that in mind. Even if black somehow lives in this very small sheltered area, um, white has already succeeded in breaking up this area quite a bit with a nice, uh, driving staple, I guess you'd call it. But yeah, so that's what the book's trying to explain. So that's why black plays 4, 6, and 8 to solidify its territory while making white look stupid, right? It's way too over concentrated. It took way too many stones to capture one stone in a very small area. So, really cool concept. I like this example quite a bit. Um, really kind of shows us both when to use the high approach and when to use the low approach. That's what we should be really trying to take away from this examples. You don't have to memorize every single move exactly, but to be fair, they help, right? These are the standard patterns. And I've already given my disclaimer that I understand that it's kind of hard to learn these, but I hope you guys understand the concept of when to use what. That's what we should try and take away from this. When to go high, when to go low. If you have some general sense of the aftermath, if you can like somewhat read out the result, like if I play low and black gets a good wall here, this is bad for the game, then you'll understand, well, maybe I should try high then, right? So hopefully that's what this is implanting in you guys, right? Or you're taking away from this lesson. The third space extension from the third line to the second line. So this is used a lot when we're sliding. So we'll see that. And yeah, let's take a look. The last pattern we examined is the 3 space extension from the third line down to the second line, right? The best points to attack are again arranged in this V shape. We've talked about this V shape in the last lecture at the beginning of chapter 8. Um, and now there's a fourth point to keep in mind. So let's just get right into it. So here we have a black stone that's really high up, and so we slide under, right? We usually see this with a 3 to second line slide when it comes under a fourth line stone. This is actually usually very useful. This is where even myself, sometimes I really don't know the best responses, right? Black has so many responses. Black could play the diagonal, the attachment, the over attachment, the hitting on top, the invasion, this one, right? There's so many ways for black to respond, and a lot of them feel very uncomfortable because it's very hard to just connect these stones. In most cases, you can't. So this is actually a very useful, I think, lecture for not only myself, but hopefully for you guys if you ever got slid under and wasn't sure what to do. So the first thing they look at is this thrust down, and white has 2 options actually. We'll talk about both of them. Let's look at the most simplest one first. Sometimes black can thrust down atop of white. The book really specified sometimes. If white pulls back at 2, black can hane at 3. White has another option, which is to play here. Now, when black plays this hane on the outside, this move really only works, this 1-3 move, if the ladder works here. If the ladder doesn't work here, then this cut is actually extremely dangerous for black. So understanding when you thrust down on an opponent like this, you need this outside ladder to work if white chooses to play B. If this ladder doesn't work, then you need to not play this move here. That's what the book is teaching you without explicitly saying it in the text, but that's what it's, yeah. I mean, I guess it is telling you explicitly, but I just always repeat myself because I'm a slow learner. So anyway, yeah, so this is really important to understand this ladder. So hitting 1 here is really important. Okay, let's look at another example of this. So this is like an actual kind of game setting. So here, let's say if white's last move was this one, and black doesn't want to hit him on the head, right? So instead, black tries the diagonal, right? The reason it'll be in the script, but you can kind of see that black's getting a nice outside wall and connecting his groups. So this is clearly a nice result for black as well as white. And so just remember the slide happened, and then we used the diagonal this time instead of the thrust. And I think all these are really easy moves to find, right? Like this is extremely natural to play like this. So the shoulder hit is a very standard move when somebody slides under you. The shoulder play at 1 is effective in this handicap game position. Driving white along the bottom, black gets a thick wall and a good result. Black 9 is a key play move. If black blocks at A, so instead of playing 9, white gets to play 9, and there's a bunch of cracks, a bunch of cutting points in black's wall. If black, let me just see. Surprisingly, black 9 also defends the corner indirectly. So there's a few things we can look at real quick. One, if black didn't play 9 and allowed this, there's quite a lot of cutting points. So there could be some ways white could definitely separate this and make it a lot weaker. So the book definitely suggests you to just stay solid and fully connected. And the reason we would play A is to keep the corner, right? But when we play this, it actually keeps a good hold of the corner anyway, but only if white plays A. They don't cover if white slides, right? So, but if white plays A, then we get to play hit the head of 3 stones, and then a double hane, because when black cuts here, it would threaten to kill both. So that's kind of the end of this little demonstration on that diagram. But the idea is that when you play 9, this E4 move, it does help the corner anyway, believe it or not. So really cool, nice double hane Tetsuji here. So that was the shoulder hit covered. So we covered the descend, which they call the thrust, and then we covered the shoulder hit. Let's go see what else we need to do. So now we're going to look at when it's appropriate to invade. If you guys remember, the V shape was the common shape in how to handle when somebody slides under you, right? These are the common moves. And so now we're going to cover the invasion here. And this invasion clearly needs a friend to help set this up to work. But this actually does happen quite often where, if black has some stones here, and white plays here and black kicks, white stands up, and then even though let's say black tanuki'd, then white gets the slide, right? I think you could see this happening quite often. So this invasion is really nice. So white's first response usually is to play A. Black will break the tiger's mouth. White will play A, and black gets to connect. Here the invasion at 1 is a very interesting idea. If white plays 2, Black lines links to his corner, and this gives him a large profit. In the mark stone in the is left. Yeah, the mark stone is left in just the right place to attack white's group. So you can see it's the angle Tetsuji, right? It's breaking the tiger's mouth. So this is a really nice position for black. I think we could all agree on that. If white played this way, I believe it gives black the opportunity to get out, right? So black gets out, white takes when black gets to play up. So white would like to intercept black by playing one here. So cutting black off from connecting to its corner. White would like to do this. But black can handle this very well, right? So if white tries to stop these two stones from connecting to this group, then you can see white can handle. Black can handle this very well just by walking out, pretty much, right? You set up, hey, can I connect? No. Okay, I'm just gonna Atari through, and then come out, right? So very simple stuff, I think. Looks a little weird. Wouldn't say I see it often in my games, but I do like this invasion a lot. Next, we can look at if white tries to handle this with B, right? B is usually the aggressive way to play. We're trying to separate these two stones. Black connects. White pushes on this, and black gets to just smoothly free out and move into the center. If white plays one diagonally, black 2 gives the same kind of result. Hey, Lotus Spoon. Hey, Warpheus. Let's see. If white plays one diagonally, black 2 gives the same kind of result as the previous diagrams. Black shouldn't play A. That would only help white play 3 anyway. So if we look at, let's say, black played, let's see, maybe here. So this is kind of going to be the same result anyway, right? That's kind of what it's showing towards. So it's much better for black to connect under and then, get this result to where it was. Did I mess this up? Here we go. So here we go. Let me delete this so I don't get confused. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I like this invasion a lot, just because I can't say I've seen it often. But this really looks nice because it has like 2 ways to connect, right? So very nice. So now we looked at the thrust down, the shoulder hit, and the invasion. I think we're at the final diagram, guys. So we're hitting the hour mark, which is good. So this is once again another slide move, right? So if white was able to slide under black's 2 high stones, now we have to decide what to do, right? We covered the thrust, we covered the shoulder hit, we covered the invasion. Finally, we're going to look at the attachment. This is the ideal place for the attachment. White, tries to continue to stay linked to its stone, and then black plays the dancing Hane. Finally, this is a position where the attachment at 1 works well. White Hane's at 2, and black counters Hane's at 3, right? The dancing Hane, or counter Hane, the book calls it. A pattern that we have seen before, right? We've covered the dancing Hane a couple times now. White Atari's in the crosscut, and black normally will get stronger. White takes, black threatens to take, and then we get a nice ladder. So this position is really nice, I think, in black's favor here, right? So let's read the script and then we'll examine the board. When white gives the Atari with 4, black comes out with 5, then captures the marked stone in a ladder. This capture works beautifully with his stones on the left side. So we see this misshapen Panuki here works extremely well with its strength and stones on this side, right? This feels like an ultimate success for black. Black has done an excellent job of making a good position here. Yeah, his stones are injured here, but this to me looks much bigger than this. Like, even if black lost his stones, which black hasn't yet, right? Black has lots of ways to still kind of run out or, try and bunker in the corner. So this is an ultimate success for black. Really nice using the dancing Hane, right? When we use the counter Hane or dancing Hane, we expect to sacrifice the second played stone. And in this case, we use it very well, right? We use the sacrifice very well. So finally, what if black played B instead of A? This is the very normal situation. But black, I think, can also play this way. So if white takes the Panuki, black then solidifies. This stone is pretty much captured. So black 1 and 3 captures the marked white stone. It's another variation which works specifically in this position. You can see that black does okay in the corner a little bit, but to me, I prefer the other one because in this case, white gets a Panuki and still has an outside stone. So, but the book says this variation was fine too. So, guys, that's the end of this lecture. Chapter 8 is not beginner friendly. It's very what we called yesterday bookie moves, right? They're the bookiest of moves if you follow the orthodox patterns, right? They're these mid-game josekis. Josekis take a long time to learn, right? You need to use them over and over and memorize the patterns, and it's very difficult. I think it's homework. That's what it is, right? Like when we play Go to have fun. But in this case, I feel like learning Joseki and standard patterns can feel like homework because it is work. So I understand that this, I already disclaimed this 2 times now, but yeah, I understand that this is not really double digit Q friendly, but we're dedicated to finish the attack and defense book. So I hope you guys crack open the book and like reread this chapter at least once. And you won't memorize anything, but I think you'll take some good stuff from it. When I was a 6Q, I learned a lot of good stuff from the standard patterns. I remember specifically, I don't know where it was. Yeah, here it is. So I remember very specifically like learning this, right? How cool this was and how cool this invasion was when I first read this chapter, back in like 2012 or 15 or something. So it was probably around 2012 or 13. But yeah, when I first opened this book, I learned how cool this move was, and then the invasion. And so this whole chapter was just about three space invasions. So once again, I think you guys get the gist.